Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to our regularly scheduled city council meeting. Got a packed house tonight. Good to see everyone here. First order of business will be to give the invocation. Tonight's invocation will be given by Deacon George Yeen of St. Lawrence Catholic Church. If you'll all please rise and also remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Let us pray. Lord God, we acknowledge your power and authority over all things. Thank you for the many blessings you shower on us, and we ask you to guide us in our deliberations for the betterment of all our community. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Deacon Jean. Appreciate that. Council, I would like to ask you to amend tonight's agenda. We would like to add a resolution that the clerk just handed us, and this would be item number, we'll add this as item number 18. And this would be a resolution approving the use of one of the city's trailers to be used to transport the veterans during the KOER parade on February the 3rd. Then the second thing I would ask you to add to the agenda would be the, I'll call the RV parking resolution, which would allow RVs for a fee to park behind the library in the new parking lot there. And you were given a copy of that resolution prior to the work session. So may I ask someone to make a motion to amend the agenda to add these two resolutions?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of amending the agenda to add these two resolutions, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Clerk, if I have a tendency to rush over that, remind me, please. Okay, first item on tonight's agenda is to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting, the work session, and the agenda meetings which were held on January the 8th. Does anybody have any changes, additions, deletions to these minutes? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt them as submitted.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes as submitted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, minutes are approved. Mayor Wilson, your report, please.
Thank you, Council President. Wanted to let citizens know, and I will update this on our website as well, that we have a new way for residents to stay connected with the Everbridge notification system. Citizens now have a chance to get alerts for emergencies as well as important community news. It comes directly to your cell phone as a text. We can now provide critical information quickly in situations such as severe weather, unexpected road closures, missing persons, and area events. Residents signing up can personalize notifications to include trash, garbage pickup, meeting notifications, traffic conditions, crime alerts, etc. There's lots of options. You can choose what you want to have. This is an incredible way for us to make sure the most important information from our city is making it into the hands of the people who need it most, our citizens. All you have to do is go to our website, fairhopeal.gov, / it's actually not /, it's / Everbridge, but we're also going to update that also on the front page so you can easily find it. On the next item on the agenda is a Tatumville development, and I do have a few things to say about it. I wanted to ask council if they've consulted with our planning department, public works, public utilities on their professional opinions on this issue. Have any of you studied the deed to see if this sets dangerous precedent for our citizens' safety and future protection? Does the Fairhope Single Tax Corporation, acting as a developer, open up the possibilities of other developers asking for the same treatment? Have you considered asking the Fairhope Single Tax Corporation to give the land to the city, as we have partnered with them so successfully since 1931, to protect and maintain it with covenants similar to the ones which had been upheld all the way to the state Supreme Court in 1962? We have to demand higher standards in face of the increased pressures for development, which often means short-term profits for some and long-term infrastructure costs ultimately paid by the citizens. I'm going to pass out a letter from 2003 that the property is unbuildable and will remain so. That's what it states. Okay, on some better news. Jeff Marks, if you can stand up, please. He's right over here if you want to get in the kind of the middle aisle. I'm not going to make him speak tonight. But I want to welcome aboard Jeff Marks. We are pleased to welcome him as our new head golf professional at Quail Creek Golf Club. Jeff came to us through the PGA placement program and was last head golf professional at Mount Vintage Plantation Golf Club in North Augusta, South Carolina. Jeff graduated with a bachelor's degree in professional golf management and marketing from the Ferris State University. He has completed PGA Business School 1, 2, and 3, and has a national certification in food and beverage management and specialty certifications in golf instruction from the Jack Nicklaus, Jim Flick Golf Schools, and Jimmy Ballard Golf Schools. He is a 2-time PGA National Award winner for the Growing the Game of Golf and 5-time finalist for the PGA Section Teacher of the Year. His strong budgetary management skills, event planning, PGA Tour tournament experience, and an extensive background as a general manager, head professional will add significantly to our quest to make Quail Creek the municipal golf course in Alabama. Jeff's first day was today. Please drop by the clubhouse and give him a warm welcome to the city of Fairhope. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Also on the agenda tonight, it is my pleasure to nominate Ron Hayes for the Personnel Advisory Board. Ron and his wife Dot founded FIGHT, which is as a project, it stands for Families in Grief Hold Together, after the untimely workplace death of his son Patrick. Through the FIGHT project, the Hayes family has been able to provide much-needed services and support to other families of victims of workplace injury, illness, and death, helping them to hold together and get answers while working through the difficult months and the years ahead. Since 1993, Ron has worked nationally to promote safer workplaces, and he has received numerous awards and recognition nationally, statewide, and locally. We are indeed lucky to have Ron as a Fairhope citizen who is so willing to help his city. Ron will lend his expertise to help our departments with safety training and make certain all new hires are up to date with safety basics. I also have an appointment for the Airport Authority Board. I'm also happy to announce Colonel Stephen Blake Waller. He is a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy, a Combat Air Force Chair to the Air University, and a Department of Leadership and Warfighting instructor at the Air War College, and the U.S. Air Force Director of Strategy, Policy, and Plans in Afghanistan. He has exceptional experience in team building, collaboration, strategic and operational planning, and problem solving, which will be a great value for our city. Okay, I have 2 Eagle Scouts to present proclamations to, if they can come down. Zachary Miller and Sage Long. always my honor to give these Eagle Scout certificates of achievement. In special recognition of Zachary Miller and Dave Cron, the many, many hours of community service given to complete your Eagle Scout project to achieve the Eagle Scout Award and the outstanding qualities you have shown in the achievement thereof. We commend your dedication, attention to detail, and hard work, and deem it an honor and a privilege to present you with this certificate of achievement. On behalf of the city of Fairhope, we are pleased to commend you for your fine efforts and to extend this token of admiration with which you are regarded in our city. Best wishes in your future endeavors. You are sure to succeed. Thank you. Thank you all. And last but not least, this is the grand finale. Can I have Dr. Booth, Barry Booth, come up? It's in the front row. Thank you. I can't see. With Mary without my glasses. Okay. Dr. Barry Booth, many of you know, is our cheerleader for veterans all across Baldwin County and Mobile County. He started the honor flight here locally, and he just really is someone to be commended. He spends a lot of time with the veterans, and he wants to introduce all of the Purple Hearts tonight before we do the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On behalf of the entire veterans community, we appreciate your support of our past veterans initiatives, which included the Honor Flight South Alabama program, and everyone knows how successful that was, even though some of the council people were not in their present position at that time. But what a great thing it was for the veterans that came in from when we came back to the airport to open that plane door and see so many Fairhope faces, the familiar faces, to welcome these American treasures back home. Secondly, I want to thank you for the support of the directional sign project that you contributed to for the Alabama State Veterans Memorial Cemetery at Spanish Fort. The sign project eliminated so many problems for out-of-town guests in trying to locate the cemetery. And we veterans refer to this hallowed ground very affectionately as our Arlington South. And just for your information, there have been almost 1,500 interments in the cemetery, numerous military and holiday celebrations and ceremonies, with over 150,000 visitors to the cemetery. That's a truckload of folks coming to visit Baldwin County, see and participate. And I urge you, if you're up Highway 225, don't pass up the opportunity to drive in. It only takes a couple of minutes. You can drive in and make the circle, give a nod, and salute those veterans that wore the cloth of our nation. Just takes a moment. Just by a hand vote or possibly stand up, how many veterans do we have in the audience? Would you stand, please? And then, you know, we never need to forget the families. How many families outside the veterans that we have in the audience have members of their family who have served or who presently serve, by a show of hands? Looks like we're all together in the same pod. How wonderful. We of the veteran community thank each of you for sharing your family members who served and who presently serve our nation around the world. And you know, Every single one of them is a volunteer. And those families have shared the most precious thing in their world, and that's their children in service to our nation. Never forget them. I would like to highlight Robert Brown. Rob, if you don't mind standing up. U.S. Army veteran, Iraq, 1st Armored Division, serving on the council. A number of months ago, I was visiting a friend that we both were in Quezon back in 66 and 67, but where he had been wounded. And while driving around his town, he pointed out the Purple Heart signs that were located in the city complex and various parking areas around the street. I thought what a great idea it would be for Baldwin County and all the communities of our county. I reached out to Ed Evans of the local chapter of the Military Order of the Purple Heart and mentioned it to him. And if you know Ed Evans, he lit his fire, and what a success he's made of the Purple Heart program here in our county. For a little history, the Military Order of the Purple Heart is a congressionally chartered veterans organization whose members have received the Purple Heart Medal, given in the name of the President of the United States to any member of our armed forces who have been wounded or lost in combat. While clearly this is an individual decoration, the Purple Heart differs from all other military awards in that the individual is not recommended for this award. They are entitled to it upon meeting certain criteria. Unlike my dental corps hoochmate in Vietnam, Dr. J.C. Bond, who was awarded 2 Purple Hearts, meaning that he received the oak leaf cluster, I am not a recipient of this decoration. However, I enthusiastically support this distinguished order that delivers programs that include suicide prevention, assistance for veterans with brain injuries, counseling for post-traumatic stress disorders, and assistance for women's health issues. These are all common challenges for combat wounded veterans. The Order of the Purple Heart offers services to all veterans and their families and continues to make significant contributions to our communities. To the Council, the mission of being designated a Purple Heart City is to raise the awareness and to honor those of our community that are recipients of this very special award. I thank you personally for your decision to proclaim this honor to our local Purple Heart veterans and to give honor to our city of Fairhope. With your permission, Mr. President, Council President, I'd like to point out the Purple Heart veterans that we have in our audience tonight.
Please do.
Mr. Ed Evans, you'll stand when United States Army, Ed, if you don't mind, turn around and let the audience see you. United States Army, Korea. Damon Donald, U.S. Army, Vietnam. Talmadge Kane, U.S. Army, Vietnam. Raymond Dixon, U.S. Army, Vietnam. Al Meek, U.S. Navy, attached to the Marine Corps. Bill Berglund, U.S. Army, Vietnam. Raymond Donald, U.S. Army, Vietnam. And lastly, Joe Burndelli, U.S. Army, Vietnam. thank you for your attention, and thank you for sharing your evening with us. And Mayor,
The
With-
proclamation. The proclamation we're going to give to the two Fairhope citizens, Purple Heart recipients. Whereas Fairhope, Alabama has a large veteran population and is the home to many Purple Heart recipients, and Baldwin County is the home of the Alabama State Veterans Memorial Cemetery at Spanish Fort, which is the resting place of many Purple Heart recipients. And whereas the city of Fairhope has a great admiration for the men and women who have selflessly served our country and acknowledges our veterans who have paid the high price of freedom by leaving their families and communities behind and placing their own lives in harm's way for the good of all. Now, therefore, I, Karen Wilson, Mayor of Fairhope, do hereby proclaim the city of Fairhope a Purple Heart city in the state of Alabama, and encourage citizens to show their appreciation for the sacrifices the Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, to acknowledge their courage, and to show them the respect and support they have earned.
Mayor, we'd like to present you two signs designating your city as a Purple Heart community.
Wonderful. We're also going to get some parking signs to add to this. So, thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
We can-
Okay.
we can move that on.
He'll be the orchestrator.
Well, you need to be closer to the front.
You hold
Here
the
we go.
sign up there.
Okay. Yes. And he really needs to be holding the sign because it looks good with his coat.
no, I'm not a...
No, I'm here.
Way to go, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you
for
for
your
your
service.
service.
Very well, thank you. Dr. Booth, can I
Sir.
get you to do me a favor before you leave the podium? Would you make mention of the passing of Mark Arnold? Okay, all right.
That's pretty good.
Wanted to make mention that our community lost a very valuable member of the Veterans Corps. Mark Arnold was promoted to his final duty station last Monday night. He was a Major, United States Marine Corps, 3-war veteran. World War II, Korea, and he and I were in Vietnam at the same time. Major Arnold's services will be at the American Legion from 2 to 4 on Saturday, and at the Veteran Cemetery in Spanish Fort at 1:30 on Sunday afternoon, this coming Sunday. So if you care to join us, it'll be a great celebration tonight at Mark's Life.
Thank you, Dr. Barry Booth. And you might remember him also, he turned on the lights for the lighting of the trees.
Right, yeah. Mark turned on the lights for the Christmas celebration this year, along with Mrs. Secrets. Thank you all again for the evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
counting on me to say that I'm finished, and I'll always forget that. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mayor Wilson. All right, next will be public participation, limited to the agenda items, number 5 through, it would be, we added 2, so 19. So if you have anything concerning items 5 through 19 to speak to the council about your concerns, questions, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Vince Booth, 6541 Beaver Creek Drive. I'll try and be very brief. First, I want to say, the gentleman who's been nominated for the Airport Authority, I have never met, to my knowledge. I have nothing against that person. I do not intend to say anything negative against that person. Don't know anything negative about that person, and would appreciate it if nothing I said is perceived to be negative about that person. I had a conversation with Mr. Conyers March 28th last year. There were 2 nominations put up by the mayor, one to replace me, one to replace Pam Caudill. I asked Jimmy if I had upset him about anything, and he said no. And we had a very good conversation, and I appreciate him returning my phone call. During that meeting, he told me that the person who's being nominated tonight had a relative, a close relative, that he believed when he had the discussion with him worked at the mayor's bookstore. I just think that's something that should have been laid on the table in public for everyone here. If it's not correct, then Mr. Conyers can go back and get the correct information. So tonight, I believe, I don't know, but I believe this gentleman's been nominated to replace Ms. Caudill. Might have been nominated to replace me, and that's perfectly fine. A couple things that I know Council President knows because he's liaison to the airport. I don't know if all of you know. I was appointed to finish out Chuck Zunk's term, and it was about 18 months there. And then last year that ended, and that's when the recommendation came to replace me. Ms. Caudill was appointed to fill a remaining 3-year term, and it was appointed again for a 6-month term. As I explained to Mr. Conyers, I'm really not a lot about self. You know, I'm an old offensive lineman. Offensive linemen don't have much of an ego, or they wouldn't be offensive linemen. But I am the only native that's on the Airport Authority. Kevin's the only other native that's lived here his whole life, and the mayor's a native here, who was not here for some years. Kevin and I both took a little tour in college, and then we came back. We've been here all of our life. I am the only Airport Authority member who owns 2 flight schools. I am the only Airport Authority member who owns an FBO, fixed-based operator. I'm the only Airport Authority member and who owns 2 Part 141 flight schools. There's only 3 in Mobile and Baldwin County combined. I'm actually the only contractor on the Airport Authority. Right now, we're building things, so I have some input there. And if that changes in time and I'm not on the Airport Authority, that's fine. I have other things I could do. I've heard comments about Ms. Caudill, and that's what I really want to talk about. That, well, she's done her term, and let's appoint somebody else. Now, I have 2 controversial things to say, but I believe them to be pure facts. In a meeting last February that I did not attend on the Airport Authority except by phone, I made the comment that I thought the mayor, through some of her directions, had cost the Airport Authority over $200,000 in interest over a 7-year term while we were renegotiating our bond issue. I still stand behind that. Ms. Caudill, a couple months earlier, asked the mayor not to interrupt some people when they were talking at a Airport Authority meeting. So myself and Ms. Caudill have been a target of the mayor's since then. But why would we want to replace the only woman on the Airport Authority? I don't know. Why would we want to replace, in my opinion, the hardest working individual on the Airport Authority? If you would dig into Ms. Cauldill's resume, see the work she's done on security, see what she did on September 11th, and what she was involved in at LAX in Los Angeles. Check out her resume in detail and know that she's the hardest working member who brings some of the best things to the airport authority. You would probably not hesitate to stand firm until she gets appointed by the mayor instead of being terminated by the mayor for what I perceive to be personal reasons. She is extremely qualified. She did not ask me to speak tonight. She did not ask me to say a word on her behalf. This is something that I, from the bottom of my heart, felt like needed to be spoken so you'd understand where it came from. If we are appointing folks because they're friends or they have relatives or who do not have the courage to speak up at times because they might be friends or relatives, we're appointing them for the wrong reason. If the reason for, well, she's done her term, it's time for her to move on. There's 6 of you up there. When your term's up, you need to move on. Let somebody else do it. But I think it's better that the citizens grade you on the performance you do. And if you had taken the time, or if you have taken the time to evaluate Ms. Caudill, you would understand fully that she deserves to continue doing the tremendous work she's doing at the airport authority. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to your comments. I've been here most of my whole life, and I turned 50 this year. You can connect me with pretty much anybody in Fairhope. I do not know Stephanie Crow's son that well. I just know his qualifications and his interest to serve. And if anybody's been keeping up with my appointments and my hires, I think most people agree I do take a lot of time and care in appointing and hiring the very best and experienced people. I mean, there is no gain to me because his mom works part-time at my store because she's a reader. I mean, there is no benefit to me for that. I strictly look at residents who want to serve, and we have a great, rich citizenship in Fairhope that want to serve. And I believe that when terms are up, even if it was a fill-in spot, we should open it up for people who want to serve. And, what we discussed with individually was that we would kind of come in the middle and they would allow me to appoint one person. As far as replacing a woman, I appointed a woman last year, and that was turned down. So, I mean, again, I just try to point out the best people in our town that want to serve. And he was nominated last year. Both were turned down. Now I'm just bringing forth one. So the appointments to the airport authority, I want to let citizens know too, is a mayor appointment. And council does approve, but council doesn't have the ability to reappoint. So after, me bringing forth twice last year and being turned down twice, I just didn't bring it up again until I talked to, some of them individually, and I felt like it was a good time to bring it up again. They were favorable to my conversation. So I'm trying not to waste anybody's time, but we do need to give all citizens an opportunity to serve. And I do feel that people on the airport authority, you have your memory of what went on, and I have mine. It's been pretty disrespectful.
Okay, table's still open for public participation.
I'd like to speak to item number 5, if I may.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry. lot of people act like this just came out of nowhere, but back in 1993, the Single Tax Corporation did a study about possibly developing some lots that we own over on Fig Avenue. We never really pushed it heavily. We had a feasibility study at the time in 1993, said the land was worth somewhere between $350,000 and $400,000, and had some drawings to develop it at that point. A couple years ago, the tax assessor discovered the land, and our taxes went from about $8 a year to about $8,000 a year on those lots that we own over on Fig Avenue. In 1996, we hired Trey Genwright to draw a subdivision for us. We hired him because at the time the city was using him to do some environmental work for them and to do some drainage rework, and seemed to have a lot of confidence in him, and that's why we hired Trey to do the work for us. He drew a subdivision for us and met all of the subdivision regulations with the exception of one. And that one regulation is that the water retention was put on city land. A knee-jerk reaction to that seems like, oh my God, we got to treat the Single Tax Corporation like we do everybody else. The city doesn't have to treat the Single Tax Corporation like they do everybody else. They do, they can treat us like they treat FEEF or like they treat Impact 100 or other nonprofit organizations whose entire job is to make the city a better place, which certainly ours is. The land, I've got the deed for right here, that's in question, the 1 acre that we put the water retention on. We gave the city that entire gully at the time that the city gave the Single Tax Corporation the land that the organic school is now on. We leased that land to the organic school. Basically, the reason that Trey, and I don't want to get into all the nitty-gritty details as far as cubic yards of water, et cetera, now that the city has Wayne Dias, Richard Peterson, and Richard Johnson on salary, we can have Trey meet with them and they can talk engineer talk. I'm not an engineer and I don't try to be an engineer. But I do know enough to know the reason that Trey actually put the water retention on city land. That gives us 2 more lots. We're able to develop 12 lots instead of 10. But that wasn't the original reason that he put the water retention. If you look at those 3 pictures, and I wish they were better, and I'm glad to walk anybody out and show them the land. That first picture is on single tax land. One of the neighbors in there took his John Deere tractor and cut that track to drain water from the city road on and through our land to keep it off of his land. So that puts us in the position that now our land is eroding away. If we fill that in, then we're putting the city Fig Avenue water right back on his house, take a chance of being sued. But basically, he came on our property and without our permission, dug that ditch. If you look at the second picture, he took his John Deere tractor onto city property and kept on going. And then the third picture, which is hard to see, but I drew just a little Sharpie line, that's about a 15 to 20 foot drop off. And right now the water catches off of Fig, goes to that little ditch that he dug, and it drops right into that area. Where you see that tree's about 20 feet up. What Trey did is he used that bowl that was already there to design his water retention. And on the back side of it, we have every single LID technique that the city offers basically in this design, from level spreaders to waterfalls to weeping walls. You name it, we're not trying to save money. We're not trying to be, frugal on this. We're trying to do it right. We're trying to have this be a demonstration to young engineers of how a development can be done right. Basically, the Single Tax Corporation cannot have, we cannot speculate, so owning land that is lots like this, we really should not do. It can jeopardize our 501c4 status. Also, it's not the intent of the Single Tax Corporation to have land and hold land as investments. That gives us a few options. One option is to do what we're doing and have 12 lots that, 12 leases that we sell. All of the money from those leases and the demonstration fees thereof go back into the community. Option 2 is you all don't sell us the acre land, in which case we simply lose 2 lots, put the water retention on our property, and then when that water comes off of our property into that hole where the tractor is dumping the water, then it's your problem and you can fix that at your cost. Option number 3 is we just put the leases out to the market and just auction our leases off. Those are the options basically that we have. I really think that the option of the city council allowing us to purchase that acre is a win-win. Ultimately, even if you gave us the land that we gave you back, we would be saving you money. We're not taking an asset worth money. We're not taking an asset that can be built on. We're taking a liability where a tractor has been cut and water is eroding currently, and we're fixing that. As far as the subdivision goes, that entire gully is a big drainage system. We're a very small part of it. The small part that we we will do right, we will fix right. There will be less water coming off our portion when we're done than there will be prior, and we will have a subdivision that the city will be proud of, that professors can take their engineering students and say, hey, here's what can be done when somebody wants to do something right. Our issue in this, we're not looking at maximizing every single dollar. Whatever we net on this, if anything, goes back into the community anyway. We're simply looking at taking this area that right now is a scar, repairing that scar, taking land that we're currently holding that we are not supposed to hold for speculation, and allowing another 12 people to come move into this wonderful town that we all enjoy. Again, I don't want to get into, if you all do, I do have Trey
Yeah,
Jenright,
I think we're
our
going to wait
engineer
until we
here.
get, I had told you prior to the meeting to bring them up in public participation, but I think we're going to wait till they get to that item, because we may have some people speak about other subjects, and while we're on that subject, I want to.
If you have any engineering questions, Trey is here. I don't know if y'all want to get into the weeds of that or not. Like I said, with y'all having a couple engineers on staff and they can get into that together. I don't try to be an engineer, but he is here if you all have any questions that I can't answer.
Council, I'd ask you just to withhold those questions until that agenda item, which contradicts what I told you prior to the meeting.
Mayor and Council, Eric Cortinas with the Fairhope Pirate Booster Club. On item number 11, I just want to let everybody know the drawdown is set for February 17th. That is a Saturday, and I would be fired from my volunteer job if I didn't let everybody know that before I left tonight. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a good time. We've booked the band, we've booked the Civic Center, we've got the tent, so everything's ready to go, and we hope to see you on the 17th.
Mayor and Council, I'm Joe McInerney. I live at 21790 Country Woods Drive. Just want to comment on item number 13. The Airport Authority is a working volunteer board. Everybody who's on that board pulls their weight every day. We have meetings and we do, truly good work for the city. Ms. Cordell especially has been very valuable as far as planning events. She's taken the lead on the NASAO conference, which we had in September. The Women's Fly-In of 2015, she was the lead person and brought over 150 women flyers into Fairhope. She's been the lead on the our safety and endangerment plan. She's actually rewritten it 3 times, and most recently she's been the person that actually has done an exceptional job of rewriting our website or developing our website and keeping the public advised of that. She's done a great job. She's been a great manager and leader in the aviation authority, and I genuinely appreciate her efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Francis Rippert, 22985 High Ridge Road. First, I'd like to say something about Mr. Booth. I don't know if you really know just how dedicated he is to the veterans, and he's pretty modest in when he's talking about being in Quezon. I was with the 3rd Marines Combat Engineers, and we opened up the road to Quezon, and I'm telling you what we saw there, I'll never forget. And how he got out of there without being wounded, I don't know. But he's a true inspiration. Secondly, the appointment to the Airport Authority, and these appointments are the mayors. And I've watched this through many city councils. I've never seen it come up to where it was a controversy until this administration. On number 5, on Tatumville Gully, that was my first experience here in Fairhope. I came here from Central America in '93. I believe it was in '94. I was working for restoration consultants out of Birmingham, and Magnolia Beach Condos was one of the first jobs I got in this area. It was about $800,000. And the condo association, from where, if you're familiar with it, you have that drainage ditch going down between them there. About halfway down from 98, it blew everything out, all the way to the water. The rocks, the seawall, it undermined several different condominiums, and it was, our part of the contract was $800,000. There was another two or three contractors there that went well over $1 million. You're going to be looking at that same thing. Now, they've had several instances since then, not as bad, but close to flooding too. So I think that should certainly be taken into consideration. And also the mayor talking about, you got 3 different brand-new department heads. I hope the council, each one of you, is going to be talking to each one of those people that we hired, that we depend on. From what I understand, planning and zoning has not passed this. Single tax hasn't voted on it, and the council didn't act on it. So I'm wondering how we even got here. It looks like the horse is before the cart. The other thing is, on this detention pond or retention pond that we're talking about, you know, we have one of those over there in the Woodlands, which is filled up. And as I understand it, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they didn't pay, the homeowners association ended up not paying the property taxes on it, and it ended up coming back to the city. So now we're supposed to maintain it. Not only is it full, but that is what's draining into Fly Creek above the public site. You can walk in there and you can see as it fills that pond up, goes right into Fly Creek. I don't know how many homes there are in the Woodlands, but now you're talking about 12 homes. So how are 12 homes going to take care of this pond, and who's going to have the liability on it if a whole subdivision the size of the Woodlands couldn't do it? And also real confusing is the fact that single tax is a developer. I took the single tax course. That flies in the face of the whole thing. This whole project does the way single tax is involved. I also have a problem with Mr. Turner, is president of planning and zoning. He's on single tax, and now he's a salesman for the project. That doesn't seem quite right to me. Also, the council, there are several members on the council that have done construction work with the single tax. I don't think you should be voting on this. If this goes forward, and I think it's a special interest thing, if this goes forward, it's going to be very interesting to see who ends up being the developers, who ends up being the builders, who ends up being in there getting the work. I think you're making a mistake by going the first step here. I don't think you need to do that. I think this needs to be passed through and come up, and I think you're setting a dangerous precedent. Thank you.
Name's Harry Bush. I live at 362 Shepherd Court, right where Mr. Turner's talking about. Let's clarify something. I've been there 44 years. I know who cut them little ditches he's talking about. In 80 and 81, I griped to the city about the water coming down Shepherd Court. It was flooding me. The city cut them 2 little ditches. Yes, we maintain them. We keep them cleaned out. And no, the water has not ate the ground out like he's talking about. That's just natural depth over there. So I didn't do the ditches. I maintain them to keep the water off of me. And I will do it as long as they're there. Thank you.
I'm Michael Schlotterbeck, live 200 Fig Avenue. I'm a relative newcomer to the Fairhope area. We've been here about 3 years now, moved down from Spanish Fort. Speaking to item 5, I would like to voice my opposition to transferring any land back over to the single tax corporation for the purpose of the Tatumville subdivision. It's my understanding from speaking with members of the single tax corporation that that area is essentially a watershed, and that once development starts in there, you're going to strip out the trees, the ground cover, everything that's going to help filter that water before it goes into Mobile Bay. Speaking from my own experience, personal experience on the Homeowners Association and the woodlands at Spanish Fort, we had our own detention pond to manage up there. I'd like to say we did a pretty good job of keeping it bush hogged and cleaned out. However, we still had, anytime we'd get these torrential rains like we get all the time down here, the water would come, rush through our detention pond and undermine Route 225 and blow that out. So they were redoing the road because, again, we're detaining it, we're not holding it permanently. And even with it cleaned out, it still would blow out the road just because there's too much water going through it. I would also say we had neighbors in the subdivision who also suffered property damage from it. Excessive water flow would blow out their swimming pools, and they all bordered the detention pond. So I'm against doing anything in Tatumville because I think you're going to create a substantial drainage problem for any homeowners that build there. And then on top of that, you've got potential pollution problems to Mobile Bay to boot. And that's all I have to say. I'd like to say just don't build anything there. Leave it in that part of the natural watershed and let nature handle it itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Floor is still open for items 5 through 19. Okay, I'll close public participation for agenda items, and remember, there will be another opportunity to address the council at the, not exactly at the conclusion, but right before the conclusion. We will be going into executive session after the next public participation. I'll tell those that might be interested, I do not expect the council to come out into session, out of executive session, and take any actions or vote on any items or resolutions after that. Okay, we'll move on to council comments. Councilman Robinson?
Sure, I'll be brief. I just wanted to comment on how inspiring it is for me to sit here and see those gentlemen that were here when we first started. You know, you see the sacrifices and the things that they've done and given up in service of this country, and it really just makes the things that we sit up here and complain about and the arguments that we have seem so trivial in the grand scheme of what really matters. And I just want to express my gratitude and appreciation for all our servicemen and women. Thank you again.
I guess I just wanted to add to, actually to what Mr. Ripp said about Dr. Booth. He is just a tremendous advocate for the veterans. Had the pleasure of working with him on a project, and he really is selfless when it comes to that, and he puts veterans' interests very high on his radar, and he makes that a priority in every community in Baldwin County, and he's really just a tremendous individual, and doesn't seek any credit for that, but just wanted to put that out there for him.
Councilman Brown?
Yeah, I just want to thank Richard Peterson and all the utility staff that kept Fairhope moving during the frozen tundra last week. Appreciate y'all's efforts. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman Brown. Councilman Boone?
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Councilman Brown said, that I really appreciate the city's efforts during that cold spell, because I know it's tough to get out there and start working on this stuff in very cold temperatures, but we appreciate all the service and all that you do, and also, it's unfortunate, but I will have to abstain from the vote on number 5.
Okay. I don't have any comments, and so we will move on to item number 5. This is an ordinance directing the transfer or sale of an acre of land to the Fairhope Single Tax Corporation, declaring said property to be surplus and not needed for the public or municipal purposes. Property is for the Tatumville subdivision. Would somebody like to introduce the ordinance?
Yeah, I'll introduce it.
Okay, the ordinance has been introduced. I would like to hear from Single Tax. If I could ask the engineer some questions.
Good evening, Trey Jenwright, J Consulting. How can I help you, Mr. Burrell?
Well, I'm hearing a lot of concern for taking away lands that filter water, pollution, runoff from more rooftops, overdevelopment of land, however you want to view that. But then I hear Mr. Turner talk about how it's going to enhance that area and prevent what may be going on now. I want to hear from an expert how it's going to help and how those other arguments, you know, I want to know, I want you to hear you counter that if you can.
Yes, sir, I'll be glad to speak to that. Single Tax reached out to me, it's probably been almost 2 years ago, about the potential of some excess property they had and how to get that from the cost side of their spreadsheet onto the positive rent income side of their spreadsheet. First thought process is your standard subdivisions that most of us in here in Fairhope are of recent are familiar with. Cram your lots in there, how to make this a profit-generating facility. But after our initial discussion with Single Tax, that was not the directive they wanted to go in. They wanted to take this facility, and since they are not a profit-generating, is not their focal point of their business, they wanted to make it a show place. Fairhope is one of the first communities that's adopted low-impact development ordinance requirements. Make this project one that is the gold standard. It includes all of those LID techniques, and basically it becomes a staple that you can carry people to and go, this is how we want it to look. This is how we want our crosswalks to look. This is how we want our storm drainage to look. This is how we want our inlets in here. If you're going to do pervious paving in the city right away, this is what we want. Set that standard. No other developer can do that. Their financial duty is to make a profit. Single Tax is not. They have the availability to spend those extra funds for that type of project. Low-impact development is to take the land as it sits and make it work with the land. It's not to go take a piece of property, reshape it into what we want to do. A lot of developments you see out here, they cut the lots in there square because the property is square. We dig a detention pond, we put it in a corner because that's the place that's least developable, and we create a hole, and that's where we're going to turn our water to. Walking this site is absolutely gorgeous. There's a potential for a really nice park down there. Whether the park part of it's ever developed, that's a second phase that I think really should be considered, but it's really pretty down there. I noticed a topographic feature that was an existing low area. It looked like maybe from an old gravel pit or an old pit or something, but it was a pond with one opening on it, out. Studying it further, the water that comes off of Shepherd Lane that's been cut in over the years, discharged into this feature, drops off about 10 or 15 feet, hangs a left, and then falls off another 10 or 15 feet before it falls into the gully down there. This feature is probably 300 feet off of the gully itself. It's out of the floodplain. It's up in a high area. So I got to thinking, if we've already got a pond essentially created here, why not use that feature for our stormwater management? There was a washout in the movement of the terrain. It's a textbook used for a step pool system. It's one that we recently did in Daphne up at Gator Alley. As you're coming off I-10 on 98 on the east side, you'll notice it over there. That whole 98 corridor drains down through there. We know what water looks like and how it needs to handle and how it needs to function. This is a great place to install that feature. Single Tax is on board to spend those extra funds to put that in there. As part of the feature, we wanted to create the trail so that as as it rains, you can actually walk down through this and see it actually functioning and see how this whole system would work. So we can put the pond up on the single tax property. We can do that. It loses their 2 lots. That's not a game changer for them. The opportunity the city has in front of them is to show developers going forward, take the land that you've got, use those features as natural pluses. Instead of trying to force something on the land, use the land, what it gives you, and then work your way into that. And that's kind of what the directive of this was 2 years ago. That's why we're here for you tonight. We want to try to use that because it's there. Why not use it? Why not make that a positive feature that people can look at it and go, well, you know, if I stop a little bit on a piece of property and figure out how I can develop it, use those techniques to our benefit, it's just, you know, it just makes sense on that end of it. As far as the hydraulics, we've worked this thing very thoroughly, and we're very comfortable with the hydraulic scheme of this project here. And I'll be glad to sit down with your new staff engineers. This went through, you know, through the Planning Commission last year. The new city staff hasn't had an opportunity to probably digest it yet, but I'll be more than happy to go through that with them at that point, if the city so desires it. So, you know, I guess in a nutshell, there's a natural feature in this 1 acre property that deems itself as a natural stormwater feature, 1, and 2, it gives the opportunity to fix this scouring that's going on down there now. So there's 2 things that we're trying to accomplish here. And then the 3rd feature that would be a benefit sometime in the future would be, it would really make a nice park if we ever wanted to push it in that direction. So,
Council, in keeping, come to the podium. Council, as you're listening to these arguments, just keep in mind that this, remember, is for the sale of 1 acre of land for appraised value. That's what this ordinance is.
I'd like to state we do have a new staff that would have to get their hands around this. The old staff had Larry Smith, on behalf of the city, double-check Trey's numbers, and he did. We also showed it to our engineer, Stephen Delahunty, that did the parking lot project for us north of the library, and he looked at it, didn't get into all the number crunching, but he really liked the overall aesthetics and the way that the land features were being utilized. Mayor, I had a lot of respect for the patience that you had when you were being accused of maybe making an appointment with other reasons, as far as, you know, the questions that were asked of, you know, one of the people at the podium of, oh, who will do this, who will do that. I make $500 a month. Cliff Pittman makes $125 a month working for the Single Tax Corporation. I will make $500 a month whether we do this project. I'll make $500 a month whether we don't do this project. I've got zero financial interest in this at all. There is an engineer that we've discussed about possibly building this because he did a job for Trey Genwright, and when things went wrong, he fixed it all at his own cost. I think it's laughable that Councilmember Boone can't vote on this, even though he's a member of the Single Tax Corporation. The Single Tax Corporation will, any money that we make in this, if we do net dollars at the end of the day, we don't have profit because we're a nonprofit 501c4. By law, any amounts of money that we have to go back into the community to relieve the burden of government. So none of this money will go to my wallet, none of this money will go to Trey's wallet, Cliff Pittman's wallet, none of it will get back to members such as Kevin Boone. Any dollar that we make on this project will go back into the community. You know, I looked at the gentleman up here from, we gave $16,000 to the American Legion so that they could hire Walcott Adams to do designs, to renovate their building, to put a venue on the first and third floor, to generate a lot of money, to do everything that Barry Booth was talking about. Those are the type of projects that we do, and those are the type of projects that we want to do. This project has nothing to do with dollars and cents as far as the acre. It doesn't matter if you give it to us free or we pay for it. All that money is eventually going back to the community anyway. If we don't do this development, somebody else is doing the development. I don't know what they'll do. Maybe somebody will buy it from us and give it to the city for a park. I don't know. But if we don't do this development with the 12 lots, we're either going to do it with the 10 or we're going to sell the lot. We're not holding this land. We are not going to jeopardize our 501c4. As far as getting the cart before the horse, this went to the Fairhope Planning and Zoning Commission, even though I didn't have a financial interest. As an abundance of caution, I recused myself and I left the room. Even though I won't make any money doing this, I did that as an abundance of caution. Frankly, me being on the Planning and Zoning Commission makes me love this project even more, because I love to point every one of these LID projects to people and say, look what can be done. This can be done. So it really does excite me, the aspect of it being done, not from any financial, gain, but I'm fourth generation here. My great-granddad came here in 1917. I love this community, and that's why, I spend my time with this single tax corporation, not for the $500 a month. I assure you I don't make a profit on that. But I will assure you, if this project is done, it will be done properly, and we will not pinch any penny or take any shortcut in any way whatsoever.
Y'all have any questions for Lee or for Mr. Jenright?
I'd like to say a couple things about it. There's a lot of people, looks like there's a lot of people here interested in this project tonight. The first, and I think, Jack, you just said it again, this ordinance is not approving this project. That's not what this ordinance is at all. This ordinance is just approving the transfer or sale of property, this 1 acre, to single tax. Okay, single tax still has to vote to approve this project. This project would still have to go to the Fairhope planning department. Engineers would have to look at it then. I mean, this is not all right, we're good with it, go build your project. That's not what this is at all. This is one step in the road to that, but that is not what this is. So that's the first thing. I mean, anybody that's here thinking that this vote is that, then that's just not true. But the second thing I'd like to say is, I'm not an engineer. Lee, you're not an engineer. I don't pretend to be one, but what I've heard about this project in the way that they're describing it tonight, and as it's been described before, is, and I use simple numbers because it's easy for me to explain. If you imagine that gully in a year takes on 100 gallons of water. All right, now obviously that's not true, but for this math, let's assume that it is. All right, 100 gallons of water, and that this 12-lot subdivision is going to create an additional 40 gallons of water. So now you're looking at 140 gallons going into that gully. All right, with this retention pond or detention pond, however it's exactly called, that's going to stop about 60 gallons of water from going into that gully. So in the end, if the engineers are correct, and I'm not an engineer, so I can't dispute it, you have to believe that the ultimate burden in that gully is going to be less than as it currently exists with nothing built on this property today. Is that correct? Okay. I mean, and that's the way I understand it. Now, obviously, anytime any sensitive area is built on or around, that creates turmoil in the community and it creates issues. But again, those are things that can be addressed once it gets into the planning stages, once it goes to Wayne, once it goes to Richard. I mean, discussing it with those guys about whether to sell this piece of property or not is not really, we're not there yet. I mean, some of these, it says on the ordinance that it's to be used for, I pull it up, but, if we approve this ordinance, and then for some reason single tax decides not to use it as part of that, whatever happens, maybe the city denies it, single tax doesn't vote for it, does it revert back to us because they didn't use it for what we gave it to them for, or are we selling it and then washing our hands of it? How does that work?
I'm saying if you're not at that point, why even do it right now then?
Well, this is a step into getting to that point. I mean, we've discussed this before, and it's, I mean, do you have them vote on it and bring it to us and say, all right, we voted, we want to do it, and now will you give it to us, or do we vote to sell them the property, which I think everybody is at least admitted, even the people for and against it, as far as the city is concerned, it's an unusable piece of property. So why not sell it to single tax, and then it becomes an unusable piece of property to them? And then single tax then takes the liability for that retention or detention pond, whatever it may
I
be.
don't think they do.
The motion that I had from our directors was to get the project approved.
Can we get you to come to the podium? We kind of have to get out of the habit of people speaking from their seats.
Excuse me, you're absolutely right, I agree. The motion.
You know how it is when you're up
Yes,
here.
yeah, the motion that I had from my directors was to get the project approved and bring it back to them to then make a final decision. At the point that it's approved, they'll know all of the cost. The real estate committee will look at the plans. We have a few local real estate agents on a real estate committee that will give them an estimate of what the lots they think would sell for, or, you know, the leases would sell for. And at that point, then the city, the directors for the single tax corporation would then make a vote. And as per our constitution, the members then would have, and Dean Mosier has already announced that he will get a resolution to overturn the vote if the directors do vote to do this project. At that point, the members then vote as a whole on whether or not to do this project. Also, we have 3 people that are called trustees, and they look over the, you know, legal documents, make sure that, you know, we're not violating the Constitution in any way. I've looked at the document swapping the 2, you know, pieces of property. I've looked at that deed. The entire deed is 2 pages and has, most of the pages are descriptions, and basically there's only one caveat, that there's a 30-foot right-of-way on one of the pieces of property. So what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do, is bring it back to the directors to vote so they can look at all the information and make that decision. The director vote will ultimately be ratified by either Dean not getting enough signatures to have a vote, or if he gets enough signatures on a petition, then the members themselves will vote whether or not to do this project.
Councilman Robinson, I want to answer your question. Under Section 2, it says this is subject to the approval of the Tatumville subdivision.
Okay.
So if that's not approved, the property reverts back to the city.
Yeah, and the other question, I think the mayor said something different, is, you know, my appreciation of the situation would be, just like any other sale of land, if I sell you the property and the deed is signed and the deal is done, then I am no longer liable for whatever happens on that property. And I would expect it to be the same with single tax. If you build a detention or retention pond on this property and there's some catastrophic event resulting from that retention or detention pond, that would be a single tax problem and not a city of Fairhope problem.
Would not be a city of Fairhope problem, that's correct.
That's correct.
It'd be the association's problem.
It won't be a Fairhope the single tax either, because you're giving this to the property owners.
Well, there'll be an owners association. We get certificates of insurance from the builder. We get certificates of insurance from the engineer. But this is, whether you sell us this acre or not, and whether we do 12 lots or 10 lots, we're still going to have water retention. We're still going to have an owners association. We're still going to have the land developed.
But how does that work? And this might be just a question for a different time, but how does that work in general for single tax? Even though you have a property owners association, single tax still owns the property. They just leased it out to these landowners, but they still own the property. So do they not still own the liability?
That would be a very interesting legal question. Thus far, the courts, thank God, have not looked at it as that way. Well, if it was, thank you very much, Jay, because that would include about 30% of all retention ponds in the city of Fairhope have that exact, you know, single tax ownership and.
And I don't know what y'all's leases look like, so I don't know
But,
exactly.
and as far as development goes, and saying it's strange the single tax corporation has done this, this is not our first development. We did the city got the soccer fields and the baseball fields in our last development, which was Colony Place over there. And that retention pond, by the way, is on public land, which is why at first we didn't see a big deal putting our retention pond where we did. But that retention pond right there by the soccer field is for the single tax lots that we sold for the development cost. But the city did get a retention pond, but they also got 5 or 6 soccer fields and a half dozen baseball fields. And we've done 2 or 3 other subdivisions in our time.
You're talking Founders
prior.
Park now.
Founders Park, excuse me, not Colony.
If anybody's thinking new soccer complex.
No, I'm sorry, Founders
intention is not.
Founders Park, that's correct. Founders Park, excuse me.
And Lee, the last thing I want to bring up is that this letter that the mayor gave us from the former single tax president that said that I don't know if it's talking about these lots or not, but it talks about lots on Pinecrest and Pomelo. Then it talks about property off Fig, which is deemed unbuildable. Is that?
That's Dean Moser at his best, giving partial information. We've got a 1993, which president signed that?
That's
George Gilmore?
yeah.
Okay,
The letter is dated September 2nd,
George Gilmore is a
2003.
trustee now, and he's very positive about this. We've got a 1993 with Michael Arnold, a prior president of ours, basically showing a half dozen different ways this property could be drawn out and leased. The land, I'm not sure about the land on Pomelo, but this land, again, George Gilmore is a professor in Spring Hill Avenue. But obviously, one of our members has dug up, which I assume would be Dean, has dug up a lot of information. But we have a 1993 item that shows, we've got engineers now that say it's buildable and has been buildable. This land is above the gentleman who spoke. Most of our lots, I think 9 of them are above his house. His house is lower than, I think, 9 of our 12, maybe 10 of our 12.
What is the big deal to wait and see what the membership wants to do before the city makes a decision?
Well, the membership will certainly have its ultimate decision, and they're the ultimate authority of the single tax corporation that they should be. And I really welcome this going to the members for a vote, since it's such a big step, and it's something that we don't do every year. We have big years. 2017 was a very quiet year. We did very little. 2016, we gave the $1 million to the hospital, $300,000 to the city for the bath facility at the soccer fields, and we built the parking lot. So we were, a couple $1 million into it in 1 year. This last year, we haven't done that much. But to answer your question, the way that it works, the members can't vote on it at this point because there hasn't been anything brought up by the directors. So when we get an answer from the city, at that point, hear first, and then I'll guarantee you we'll meet every Planning and Zoning Commission regulation and exceed it. Once we get a positive vote here and a positive vote from the single tax, from the Planning and Zoning Commission, at that point, we know that we can do the project. At that point, the directors will vote, may think it's too risky, and decide not to do it.
Membership.
And if they vote and decide it's too risky, the members could then vote to do the project. If the directors vote and say that they would love to do the project, and the directors vote 5-0 unanimously, the members can still vote against the project and, in essence, vote it down.
This transfer or sale is contingent on that vote. Isn't that what you said, Jack?
Yes.
So, if they vote no, then.
There'd be no reason for us to buy it if.
Then this would be null.
Right.
Correct.
And I've got some comments, just because I was on the planning commission months ago when this first came up, and I think a little bit of the, the confusion is that when this came before the planning commission, I really liked the project. I'm not an engineer, as Jay alluded. I put a lot of faith in Trey Jennerite as well as Larry Smith. They both said this would actually improve the water flow, but I was not comfortable with this being on city property, and I think several other members of the planning commission felt the same way about the detention pond. So one way the planning commission addressed this, they said, well, we don't want to grant you an approval based on a hypothetical, because we weren't comfortable with doing this on city property, and we don't want to grant it based on a hypothetical that either the city's going to allow that when you haven't even talked to them yet, or that the city's going to sell you the property. So it's kind of been in a little bit of a yo-yo status where the planning commission's wanting you to get this blessed by the city council before you come back around to the planning commission. You're sort of in that same boat with, do you go before the single tax first, or do you wait until you also have this blessed to go to the membership for that? And even if we do approve the granting of, the transfer of an acre of land, I think it's still, we have new faces on the planning commission. We have some new employees, public works and other departments. It's still got to go back through the whole process. And even if the city council were to approve the transfer through the sale of that 1 acre, it's not the same as a stamped approval of the project itself. But I like the project. I think the project has a lot of merits to it. And I've talked extensively to people pro and against this project. And my biggest concern has been, how do you treat that detention pond? Where is it located? I don't think the city wants to put that on our property. This would certainly get around that. I also think the condo association at Magnolia Beach down there, I believe they may even be in favor of this, as they believe this is going to be an improvement to that continuous issue they have of erosion. I had heard from the president at one point.
Yeah, a couple of the members have talked and called Michael Arnold, our secretary, and said that they're in support of if they could help us in any way.
So that we don't put the cart before the horse, what is the best order of doing things? Is this, y'all feel
Well,
is
what
the
we're
best?
asking is for you all to approve the 1 acre sale. At that point.
Contingent upon
Approval
of planning commission
zoning
and single
approval.
tax.
And at that point, yes, and single tax approval. At that point, we would go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I would recuse myself, but over an abundance of caution. And the the Planning and Zoning Commission will vote this up or down. And then at that point, we would then, if it gets voted up, we would at that point take it to our directors, and the directors would then vote whether or not they want us to do this development.
I guess I kind of see this as being the step forward for them to know whether they have anything to do, to act on. I mean, I don't think, I certainly think that if we were to agree to do this, that we all reserve the right to vote how we feel like voting, as well as what the planning commission, but it seems like this would be the next step in order to have y'all take this to the single tax and to the planning commission, to know what direction you're really going.
I would like to ask the mayor, she mentioned in her mayoral comments that there were employees opposed. I would be interested in hearing from them. Is there anyone that you could call on to give
I
us
actually
their
asked if
opposition to
anybody
that?
had engaged with them. That's what I said in my mayor report.
Okay.
And I would certainly want to hear what they had to say before I would vote for approval of the project.
It's on the agenda, and these questions haven't been asked.
I do
There is a
recall-
step that can happen before this, and that is, do the members even want it? It just is,
And that gets sort of back into that same situation they were with the planning commission, where they came before us and we said, well, why do we even want to consider this if we don't know if it's even feasible, whether the city would entertain either allowing you to build on their land for the detention pond or the sale of it. And so the planning commission kind of kicked them towards the council first.
well, the council's job is to, y'all are the ones that are going to determine whether or not this is not usable. The thing is this is a watershed. It doesn't
Karen,
have
what is-
zero
what
value.
is-
It actually is invaluable.
What is your goal here? Is the land's going to be developed one way or the other? I mean, whether we do a 12-lot subdivision and the city council gives us an acre, or whether we sell the land and a for-profit developer comes in, that's $1 million worth of land.
I don't
And
know
we're
if
not-
for sure
we're
that
not-
it will be developed.
We're not gonna own the land, we're not gonna hold the land, we're not supposed to hold, speculate in land. That goes against all of the George theories, and it goes against our 501c4. So ultimately, this land is not gonna be woods, and it's not gonna have that cut ditch forever. I mean, even if we just walked away and did nothing, that's gonna get worse and worse. But
This is our most sensitive gully system, and all of our gullies are going to be tearing down a ton of trees.
All right.
It's going to, there have not been enough questions asked with people that, besides your engineers,
excuse me, Larry Smith was the city's
Okay.
engineer.
I'm going to have to
understand that.
step in
I'm saying
here,
that
and
now.
and I'm going to have to ask you to be recognized by the chairman if you want to speak, and this is kind of going everywhere, and this is up to the council right now everybody discussed. Does any other council members have any questions?
I have no question.
Any others? Okay. All right. Councilman Boone has abstained. We can't even take a vote for immediate consideration tonight because we wouldn't have unanimous consent for that. So in keeping with our ordinances that are introduced, it will lay over to the next meeting. Okay? Thank you. And that's what all this chit-chat was between the clerk and the attorney on this kind of procedure that we had to discuss. Okay, we're going to move on to item 6. This is a resolution that the City of Fairhope authorizes submission of a pre-application to ADECA requesting an FY 2018 recreational trails program grant and authorizes Mayor Karen Wilson to sign the required grant application on behalf of the city. Can y'all keep the noise down, please? This authorizes Mayor Karen Wilson to sign the required grant application on behalf of the city to construct a recreational trail located throughout North Beach Park. Total projected cost estimate is $499,962.65. It's an 80-20 match. The city's estimate would be $99,992.53.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and members of council, as we discussed at the work session at the last meeting, we are seeking a resolution support to make an application for the grant. If we get it, then we'll pursue developing a trail system there at North Beach.
Council, any questions? We were briefed on this at last meeting's work session. If you need to review that under tab 6, there is a plat of that trail once again. Any questions for them?
Not necessarily, but Jack, I don't know if it was in a meeting or when we were going through the budget, if it was brought up about what the city is exposed grant-wise, matching, quarter match, whatever the match is. I would like to see some kind of tally as we move through 2018 of what we are committed to with these grants.
And I did put in a request. I know that our folks in finance are working on y'all a nice at-a-glance spreadsheet to kind of see what we have been confirmed for, as well as what we're going after, so you kind of know what that exposure level is. So we're working on that, and hopefully we'll get that to you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Well, we have budget on tonight's meeting, and it plays a factor in the budgeting, so if we could get that expedited, that'd be great. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve this pre-application to ADECA.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, pre-application is approved. Thank you. Item 7 is a resolution to hereby amend and now approve Volkert Incorporated to perform design engineering services for sidewalks between US 98 and County Road 13. This is ALDOT TAP grant number TAPAA TA17, and hereby authorizes Mayor Karen Wilson to negotiate a fee schedule and establish a not-to-exceed limit with this firm. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, this is correcting a typo error. In your packet, you'll see that the memos clearly stated that Volkert was selected, but when the actual resolution was put before you, there was a parent cut and paste error that had another engineering firm in there, and so we felt it was prudent, after talking with our city clerk, that we have you amend this action so that everything is correct. Any questions?
No, Volkert is correct. Neil Schaefer was incorrect.
That is correct.
Was Neil Schaefer surprised to learn they won that?
They had no clue that they had been awarded it by y'all. So.
That's good to hear.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to amend this.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to amend the wording and allow the mayor to negotiate the fee schedule. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, resolution passes. Thank you. Item 8 is a resolution rejecting all bids for repairs to the Quail Creek Clubhouse for the Public Works Department and authorizes, I think that's supposed to be Mayor Wilson to negotiate the contract, or the city and the mayor to negotiate the contract with one bid. Public Works Department and authorized to negotiate. Is that supposed to be?
What's the resolution say? It should be.
Okay. Let's go back here and read that real quick.
Yeah, authorize Mayor Wilson to negotiate a contract.
Authorizes to negotiate a contract with the one bidder. Which was right. Okay. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, as kind of briefed you in the work session, we only had one bid submitted, And in that case, public bid law allows us to go into negotiations with that one bidder to see that we can value engineer that price. And what we're seeking here is, one, the rejection of the face value of the bid. We are not recommending that we reject the bidder and allow us to go forth and value engineer and negotiate a price to move this project forward. And I will tell you that the bidder has already worked with the project engineer at some work and options that has significantly lowered that price, delivering all the components of the project that we desire, much below that original $316,000 base bid. Any questions?
Yes, you mentioned in the work session that the fastest way to expedite this project would be to reject the bids and then authorize to negotiate a contract with one bidder with a cap, so that we don't have to come back 2 weeks from now. Would the cap be set at what the, what was it, 282, or would you set it even lower than that, or?
Would you set it at what the original proposal called for and then try to get it as low as you could? But
My recommendation is that when they have laid out some options, the option delivers everything in the initial project with some substitution of materials, puts us at 282,175. That is, we had in there a add alternate to replace the windows. If we wanted to go ahead and invest in replacing the windows, my recommendation would be to go with the $304,000 bid, because basically that difference, $26,000, is new windows in there. And I think that's a judgment call of the council. If we feel that that building is going to serve us for 25 more years, I think the investment of windows at this time is a good investment. If we feel that that building is going to see further changes or further heavy remodeling or replacement in entirety in a relatively short period of time, 10, 11, 12 years, we wouldn't get a return on the investment of those windows. That's really y'all's decision. But the nice thing is, either option is going to deliver the vernacular and the aesthetic that we're looking for. When you see the project finished, it's going to look like a remodeled clubhouse. The exterior is going to have the expanded deck and all those features and porch features that we desire in the project.
I don't see that building in place 25 years from now, as is, without some major overhaul.
Well, then if that is the consent of the council, I think the cap should be that, 282,175, and let's get this project down the road.
I would highly advise against putting a cap. I would never advertise
No.
my maximum amount I want to bid, because that's the number you're going to get. I think we take all negotiating power away from the council when we do that.
I like this process, to move this project along, negotiate with the one bidder. I would like to be involved, and I can be the kind of council liaison. And with this material selection, some of these material selections might not be might save money, but you might have something that's substandard when you're done. Might be worth a little extra money rather than trying to get it as low as possible.
I think we can afford to wait until the first meeting in February to see what they came back with.
Very good.
My thoughts.
Okay.
Well, we have to have a motion to vote. That's just my opinion.
I was going to also say, you don't want to put out there the number that we're looking at, because they're going to get as close to it as they possibly can. And if the number's too high, we can always reject that number also. So
That's right.
just leave it to the negotiation power to get as low as we can.
Well, it is 35,000 lower than what we already were willing to do, right?
Well, again, it is, I think that I don't have any heartache with sitting down and letting Councilman Brown be a liaison and going through this item by item and coming back in 2 weeks. Again, it is the value of that 2 weeks, and I think what's another 2 weeks, and this is not going
I'm
to hurt
not going to
anybody.
get that far in the weeds in it, but I can look at a number and say, yeah, that's worth saving to go to that product or not.
Very
So,
good.
All right, council, I'll entertain a motion for the resolution as written, or I'll entertain a motion to amend.
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Item number 9 is a resolution that Mayor Kieran Wilson is hereby authorized to execute the second and final extension of the contract with DCP Enterprises LP for supply of hydrated lime and gas chlorine chemicals for the water and sewer department. One additional 1 year as per the terms and conditions of the original contract. The cost of the products will be $10.50 per 50-pound bag for hydrated lime and $97.50 per 150-pound cylinder for gas chlorine. Anybody have any questions for the gas department for this, our water and sewer department, I'm sorry. I'll entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
If anybody's interested, we did use 3,630 bags of lime last year and about 130 bottles of chlorine. Just to let you know.
Okay. All right. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 10 is a resolution approval of the 2017-2018 budget. Councilman Brown and I started the work session. I want to thank Councilman Brown for many hours. I want to thank the mayor for putting in many hours on this. We went through many revisions. I want to thank the staff and the finance department in particular for the go-through. As late as, I think, sometime during the work session, still making edits, final edits. And anyway, so Robert, I'll let you make some comments if you'd like. You want to highlight anything?
Yeah, I'll just hit the highlight numbers. Projected revenue 2018 is $26,795,945. Total government, this general government, total governmental expense is $26,148,655. Total appropriations and transfers, for a deficit of $3,904,454. That deficit includes $1.2 million set aside per the ordinance for debt reduction next year, or could be spent for capital. Transfer from the city utilities of $3,181,000, which is in line with what's been transferred in previous years. The budget balances out at $22,000 for general government. Utilities, $1,226,536. Total expenses, $29,443,628. Deduct the city subsidy of $3 million and some change. The net earnings after transfers for the city utilities. After debt service, capitalized labor, vehicles, and upgrades for utility department, the city utilities end up with a $3,387,440 cash.
Comment is something that we talked about in the work session on the utility rates, that the without a 1.5% across the board utility hike, the budget numbers will not work. So utility rate hikes of 5.9%, and Councilman Brown and I settled on 1.5 across the board. It's the only thing that we felt comfortable with. That revenue can't be attained now because we cannot put that, because those rates are permanent in nature, and that has to be done via ordinance, and we don't have ordinances drafted for the 4 utilities. So what I'm going to ask Councilman Brown to do is, go out in the next, between now and the next meeting, and come up with a number, and it may not, will not match what is, what's in the budget. The other thing that I wanted to say, council members, is that, you have an envelope with confidential salary pay information, and this was handed to us right before the meeting, and I just opened it up as I've been sitting here. I do see, at least one number that's incorrect, and I don't know how we're going to address, a line item such as that. There was a promotion to a position which doesn't exist yet, and so that position has to be approved before you can make a promotion to that position. But the new salary, you can come on up, Jill, if you want. But the new salary is in the budget. There's a note there that says not going to be promoted, but we were going to debate that, but when the number is still in the budget over here, if we vote on this, that number is being approved. Okay. Right. Okay, I see that. Okay. Okay, all right, I like that explanation. Yeah, okay. So that explanation that I was given was that that number in the budget was including their salary plus overtime, so it may not be that, but I'll take the higher number, Jill, because that's a potential of what should be budgeted, the salary plus overtime. Was there anything else like that that you could think of? Right. And I apologize to the audience, but there are literally just hundreds of small lines to read through, and it's not trying to pick on Jill, that she had a lot to edit today. I just want to make sure that if we approve a number, that's accurate. Okay? I think we're ready to go with that explanation. Any questions for us, council?
I think we covered it pretty well in the work session.
All right. If I don't hear any questions, I'll entertain a motion to pass the 2017-2018 budget as submitted this afternoon.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 11 is an application for a nonprofit tax exempt license or an alcoholic beverage license by Eric Cortinez for the Fairhope Pirate Booster Club for the 23rd annual drawdown and silent auction located at 161 North Section Street, Fairhope, Alabama, on February 17th, 2018. Chief Pettis, is he here? I'm going to assume there are no reasons to deny this application. Stephanie, do you know of any reasons to deny this application? Okay. All right, council, I'll entertain a motion to approve this application.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item number 12 is an application for a nonprofit tax exempt license or an alcoholic beverage license by Laura Poche. Did I get that right? If I butchered that name, I apologize. For the St. Michael Catholic High School for Cardinals in the Courtyard 2018, located at 11732 Higbee Road, Fairhope, Alabama, on March 10th, 2018. Sollinghead, do you know of any reason to deny this application? Okay. Council, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve this application.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Item 13 is an appointment to the Airport Authority. This will be for a 6-year term. The nomination by the mayor is for Blake Waller, replacing Pam Caudill, whose term expired March 2017. Entertain a motion to approve this appointment.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. But I've got some comments I'd like to make.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments?
You know, I think that Vince mentioned earlier, you know, we did have a good conversation. I didn't realize that was 10 months ago. Here we are, we're still dealing with this issue. My issue, I guess, with the Airport Authority is trying to strike a balance, trying to find some kind of compromise. And I've talked to the mayor about this. I feel like, I understand it's the mayor's authority to make the nominations. It's the council's authority to vote on them. The airport authority ought to be given some consideration to who they think is a good fit for their committee as well. I know I serve on the Environmental Advisory and the Historic Preservation, and I'm going with their recommendation on each of these committees just because I feel like they know what they're doing. My proposal 10 months ago, or my recommendation 10 months ago, was that I felt like we should have a meet in the middle where the mayor nominates one new person and one of the two whose terms are expired, and then I feel like that's as best we can do to compromise. There has been some tension between the mayor and the airport authority, and I just feel like that's the fairest meet in the middle. Everybody gives up a little bit, everybody gets a little bit. Let's do that and move forward. If we could pick one out of Vince or Pam, and then pick one out of, well, you've got Blake, Colonel Waller, I just think that's the most equitable thing to do.
Well, the agreement was that y'all would nominate, y'all would approve one. That was the agreement. And as far as meeting in the middle and sacrificing, I'm the only one that sacrifices because I don't have any authority on council. So I really am the ultimate sacrificer. So, you know, I've talked to all of y'all individually. Y'all seemed like you would be favorable to nominating one. I'm not nominating two, I'm nominating one. So that was not the agreement that we came up with in the past. It was just because if I just nominate one, the other one is still there.
Right.
So that was not at all the agreement.
But it's just carrying it forward out of protest or refusal to nominate, and then we're going to refuse to vote for someone else in that spot, and they just hold over. And I mean, we can do that, but why do that to that individual? Why not just nominate them and we reappoint them as well?
Yeah, and that sort of leads to my position on it. You know, I've actually, this is, I think, the third time we voted on possibly replacing Pam as a member of the airport authority. And I don't really know Pam very well, but I hear about her in the community and the things that she's done on the airport authority. You know, Fairhope is and the reason I'm saying we've voted on it multiple times is I've actually voted both ways now. I voted in favor of replacing her the first time and against it the second time. But I keep coming back to this. You know, Fairhope is a community that was both founded with volunteers, that you know, is supported every day by volunteers and continues to thrive on the backs of all the volunteers that we have in this community. I mean, more than any place I've ever lived, Fairhope is more of a volunteer-based community than anywhere else that I can think of. And when you start politicizing volunteer positions and people that have, by all accounts, done an exceptional job are replaced just because there is a new mayor or a new council, then you worry about placing a chilling effect on volunteers wanting to step up and contribute in the community because of political ramifications. And I do agree with the mayor on this. She has absolute authority to appoint a member to the airport authority. The council does not have that appointing authority. But where I think I disagree with her is, in my view, the mayor has absolute authority to appoint someone when there is a vacancy, meaning someone is retired or resigned or given up that post. As long as we have committed volunteers that are wanting to continue their service and continue, like I said, by all accounts, doing great or exceptional work for that program or that system, I have a hard time firing an employee. And so to me, that is concerning. Now, I think the person that the mayor is nominated is an exceptional candidate. You know, I've seen her appointments on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they're all, from what I can tell, incredibly qualified individuals that are doing a great job. So I don't have any issues with the person that she's nominated. It's just my concern of this ultimate chilling effect on the volunteers in our community that they're going to become targets in some of this stuff that goes on up here when that should never be the case. We should thank every one of them and tell them how grateful we are for all the things that they do for us without any compensation whatsoever and a whole lot of headache and a whole lot of grief. And so, that really, I really am torn on this. Like I said, I voted both ways, but I just really, that's the way I feel, and I think that's my position on the
I
subject.
do want to point out, the appointment is when the place is expired, not just open.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I'm saying, the mayor's job is to appoint a potential replacement, but the council's job is to approve whether that person can replace that expiring contract.
And I asked council to choose who they wanted to replace.
We're going to,
So I
please,
wasn't-
this is a council discussion, council debate. Mayor, I'm giving you a lot of leeway to give your opinion, but we cannot continue this. This is council discussion phase of this item. Councilman Robinson, any more comments?
That's all I had. Thank you.
I want to weigh in as the liaison to the airport authority. I remember the compromise that was tried to be made many months ago. I remember the votes too, and I actually feel like that, the mayor's not the appointing, but the nominating authority. And you put up a candidate and the council doesn't agree, then you don't put anyone on there. And I do respect the fact that she is the nominating authority. However, I came in here tonight thinking that probably Ms. Caudill is going to be replaced, and I didn't want to offend the person that the mayor nominated because I think he's probably an extremely fine person and very, very qualified, extremely qualified. But I talked to Ms. Caudill just before the work session, and her dedication is such that even in all of this fire that she's been in, she's willing to serve. I mean, it's incredible. And to Mr. Booth's comments about her, I mean, she is the hardest working person on the airport authority. And I did listen to that. And I think Mr. Booth is probably the most qualified candidate on the airport authority to be a member. But I believe that Pam is is hardest working and a very, very close to Vince's qualifications. And I also listened to the airport authority chairman who came up and spoke in support of Ms. Caudill. And I know that the mayor asked for this to be put on the agenda last week, and she has the right, and we put that on there just as she asked. But we didn't, the airport authority met last Tuesday, and we didn't have a chance to vote on a recommendation. But I know that the recommendation many months ago was to appoint Mr. Booth and Ms. Caudill. And I think that we also have some other appointments tonight, and I think that those committees and boards' opinions matter greatly. The airport authority is really supposed to be a separate entity from the city of Fairhope, and as such, should not be subject to political agendas, plans. And I'm not saying that there are any agendas or plans on this, but I think that when you have a volunteer that has served as admirably as Ms. Caudill, I think I'm going to stand behind her, stand with the airport authority. Any other comments?
Yeah, my comments are, three of y'all made some great comments and nothing against Ms. Caudill, but I told the mayor that I would support replacing her after the NASAO conference, and I'm going to stick by my word.
Jack, you mentioned in the work session about the airport authority putting together some advisory committee. Is that, did I get that right?
That is correct.
I mean, we've got so many qualified people that want to help and participate at the airport. Maybe some of these appointments, if they pass or don't pass tonight, whoever is not on it, maybe they could serve in that advisory capacity so that they can bring their expertise to the airport maybe in another way.
Well, it gives the airport authority to see them in action and see what they bring to the table too. Are they going to work, or are they professional resume builders? I'm not a suggestion either way on any of this, but that gives you an opportunity to view that. Kind of like the FIF board does that.
That would be an equitable solution. Whoever doesn't get nominated or put on tonight can help.
That's made up
Can-
by
can-
the airport authority does
Yeah.
select that.
Well, that would be my 2 cents if that's a possibility, because you do have a lot of qualified people that want to help. And you can always take all, two hands are better than one. Heads, I meant, not hands. Everybody's got 2 hands, sorry.
Any further comments? Okay, hearing none on the appointment to the airport authority. All those in favor of the mayor's nomination, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion, the appointment fails. Item number 14 is appointment to the Personnel Board. Did I get that right, clerk?
That's correct.
All right.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to see if we could table this to give the Personnel Board an opportunity to talk with this individual. Nobody's talked with this individual from that board and haven't really met him, and I'd like to give them that opportunity and table this till the next meeting. And I'd also like for Diane Thomas, to come up and talk to us about the Personnel Board and the procedures we had done in the past.
I'll grant that permission.
Thank you.
In light of this nomination, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the process that the board has used and developed over the last couple of years, and that we think has worked pretty well. When we've had a nomination, what we've done is we've asked for the individual to give us a resume that talks about their background, work experience, education, and their application. And we're also interested in knowing what they would, why they would like to serve on the Personnel Board. After we get the resume, we circulate it to all the board members, and we let the board members informally meet with this nominee. When all the board members have met with the nominee, we ask them to attend a Personnel Board meeting, because we'd like for them to get a feel for what it is that we do, what kind of work, what are the issues that we tackle. After we've done all that, and that takes maybe, 6 weeks, it can be a little time consuming. But after we do that, we kind of see if we think this person is a good fit. And we ask that person after they've been through all of this. They've met all of us, would you like to work with us? And we kind of survey our members, so we see. If we are positive, then we send our recommendation on to the mayor, and we say, this person looks like they'd be a good fit. And we also send the recommendation to the council, to both of y'all. I want to say one thing about the Personnel Board, and this is as much to the people in the audience. The Personnel Board is an independent advisory board that serves both the mayor and the council. And our exact charge, and I'm going to quote from the Personnel Manual, upon request by the mayor or the city council, the Personnel Board may investigate, review, and recommend changes or additions to personnel rules, policies, and procedures for submission to the mayor and the city council. We also serve as the Predisciplinary Hearing Review Board. This board has worked really hard to keep it a diverse board. And I mean diverse in all aspects. Experience, expertise, background, age, some working, some retired. But the other thing that we've really tried to do is when people come onto the board, they don't already have personal relationships with other board members. When we tackle issues for the city, we like to get a varied viewpoint, and so we feel like people that don't necessarily have personal relationships before they get on the board. That, I'm not saying anything about the mayor's nominee. When I got on the board, I didn't know anybody, and we developed working relationships after we've been on it. But we've been working really hard, probably for the last 4 to 5 years, to keep this to be an independent, diverse board. Any questions for me?
Any questions, council? So let me just be clear. You haven't made a recommendation?
I did not know about this recommendation, about the nominee until today, and we've not had an opportunity to see his resume or meet him. I think, I speak for the board, we would really like to do that. We'd like to follow the same procedure that we have with all the other nominees that we've had over the last several years.
I respond.
Go ahead, Mayor. Yes.
When we met in my office and Lorenzo retired from his position, you asked if y'all wanted to make a recommendation, and I said, I'd like to find an appointment. Nowhere during that conversation did you say anything further after I said that.
The conversation, I remember it quite clearly. I told you about the procedure that we had used, all of these steps, did I not?
No, you said, you asked if I wanted to recommend somebody, or would you all like to find somebody, and I said, I would like to recommend somebody. You didn't say afterwards, if you said this is how we've done it in the past, that's fine, but you didn't say we would like to meet them afterwards, or I would have certainly. This is not something, I don't think there's anything you can find about this gentleman that would be any negativity, and I'm happy for y'all to meet him. But you could have picked up the phone and called me too, because this has been on the agenda. I just, when we spoke during our meeting, you never brought this up.
Mayor, I went over this process step by step with you. And I said we could come up with nominees, because in the past, what we've done is Mayor Cant said, bring somebody to me. We went through this whole process. Then we sent it to him, not with the idea that he was going to rubber stamp anything, but that he was going to look. 2 nominees in the past, we've done the very same thing with you. We've sent it to you with the resume, asked if you wanted to meet those people because it is your appointment. And so I went over all that, and you said to me, well, I've lived in this community all my life, and I know a number of people. So I've told you about the process, and I just assumed, I don't know what I assumed. I think we both assumed different things. All I'm saying tonight is the board, I think, would like to go through this same process with your current nominee. I think it's a really valid process. I think it helps ensure the diversity and the independence of the board, is what I think.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Boone has recommended tabling this. I will entertain a motion for that. I'll entertain a motion for the appointment.
I'd make a motion we table this.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And we need to be clear that we're tabling it so that the Personnel Board will have the opportunity to meet and make a recommendation on this candidate.
Yes.
This is not a denial of the appointment.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of tabling this appointment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay. Item number 15 is appointment to the Fairhope Environmental Advisory Board. This is for a 4-year term. This is for the appointment of Mr. Ben Frater for a term ending January 2022. I will note that the Fairhope Environmental Advisory Board did consider and pass a motion to recommend him.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Frater to the Fairhope Environmental Advisory Board. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, Mr. Frater is appointed. Thank you, council. Item 16 is appointment to the Historic Preservation Committee. This would be a 3-year term of Mr. James, known as Jim Huggins. Term shall end January 2021.
I believe he actually helped start the Historic Preservation Committee, too, so.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is this a reappointment then?
I believe so, yes. Appointment, okay, he may have been off a little bit.
Did the,
It's an appointment.
did the Fairhope Environment, did the
Yes,
Historic Preservation make a recommendation?
They did make a recommendation, yes.
Okay, I didn't see that letter. Thank you, that makes things a lot easier today. Okay, do we have a motion and a second?
Yes, we do.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of this appointment to the Historic Preservation Committee, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay. Item 17 is appointment to the Harbor Board Employee Liaison. Mr. Drew Craze, the Marina Manager, and we don't have his application, but I highly recommend that the person running the marina is a liaison to the Harbor Board, and I would appreciate motion to appoint him as the employee liaison to the harbor.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to appoint Drew Craze as the employee liaison to the harbor board. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, appointment is approved. Thank you, council. Item 18, this was added. I'll read this resolution. You should have it. Be it resolved by the governing body of the city of Fairhope that the city council approves and authorizes Mayor Karen Wilson to negotiate and execute a contract between the city and the local VFW for the use of a one idle, I guess that means unused, 20-foot trailer to be used as parade transportation for Fairhope's veterans in the KOER parade on February the 3rd, 2018. And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, council. The next item is the RV parking resolution. We covered covered that in a lot of detail in the work session. Allowing the use of the parking lot behind the Fairhope Library, a portion of Magnolia Avenue on the south side of Magnolia Avenue, 3 spots there, and then also a portion of the parking, the diagonal parking on School Street. I think there were 9 in the lot, 3 on Magnolia and 2 on School Street for a total of 14. You see the times there. I went over that in the work session. The fees, you pay all or nothing. You don't get to pay for a day or 2. You got to pay for it all if you want it. And you see the rules there. I'll entertain a motion for adoption of this.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to allow the parking of the RVs. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, council. Public participation. If you have anything else to bring forth before the council, please come forward to the podium. State your name and address for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes.
Good evening, council. My name is Billy Wise. I live at 104 Parr Circle in the beautiful city of Fairhope. I want to share tonight with the city council some information relating to the proposed entertainment district in Fairhope. In 2012, Montgomery created an entertainment district. On April 17th, 2017, at 1:30 a.m., a brawl broke out on Commerce Street in the middle of the downtown entertainment district. A crowd of 40-some people gathered in the street began fighting with one another and throwing outside chairs in the street. Following this incident, the Montgomery Police Department said they would be increasing police presence in the downtown entertainment district and would be working with merchants and businesses to assure a safe and enjoyable environment for residents and visitors. In May 2017, Montgomery Police clamped down on the entertainment district. Under city laws, people can walk around the entertainment district with open beverage containers from 9 a.m. till midnight every day of the week. After midnight, they have to drink only inside. However, the city never had enforced the midnight cutoff until the late night brawl on Commerce Street a month earlier. So, the police started enforcing the midnight cutoff and deployed more police officers to make sure that outside drinking stops at midnight. A stretch of Commerce Street was closed to car traffic at night, and police officers on the street keep crowds moving and prevent clusters of people from gathering in one spot. Undercover officers are patrolling parking lots downtown late at night to detect problems. Police have also started checking IDs of people who come downtown on so-called party buses where drinking is allowed. If any person on a party bus is under 21 years of age, the driver can be arrested for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. On December 6th, 2017, the city of Montgomery announced that they were suspending the entertainment district for an indefinite period effective January 1st, 2018. I quote City Councilman Tracy Larkin, that the suspension is an effort to do all we can to ensure a safe, wholesome environment for all Montgomery citizens. The city had held a number of meetings over recent months with business owners, residents, and public safety leadership. Residents who live downtown have raised concerns about noise and people loitering outside. While business leaders have wondered whether people are loitering outside of establishments and refilling their drinks with their own alcohol. There were also concerns expressed about people selling alcohol out of their cars. Montgomery Mayor Todd Strange said that overtime extra pay for police patrols was becoming expensive, pointing to an added $500,000 annually for police overtime to control the entertainment district. One of the reasons the entertainment district was established in Montgomery was to lure more people downtown. However, the district had started to become a nuisance. More and more people congregated on street corners, and it attracted the wrong kind of crowds. More than 30 businesses agreed with the closure of the entertainment district. I've made for each of you a packet of 4 news stories out of the Montgomery media about the Montgomery Entertainment District closure. I hope that you will take time to read the details of the issue. And as you read these articles, I hope that you will ponder whether this is really the type of activity and outcome that you want to bring to Fairhope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Jerry Johnson, and I'm from Orange Beach, and I serve on the City Council at Orange Beach. So, number one, I applaud you for a well-run meeting. And I tell you one thing, it's a little bit easier to be on this side of the podium. But I am running for, I'm a candidate for the Baldwin County Commission, District 4, which includes Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Foley, Alberta, and Lillian. But that really doesn't matter because you're going to vote countywide for every commissioner. So it's good to be in Fairhope. And I've been spending quite a bit of time in Fairhope, and we'll continue that until June 5th. So it's good to be here. I think I've introduced myself to you, most of you, and it's great to be here, but look forward to a great campaign. And if you ever need any questions or anything, I'm hoping I can bring leadership to the commission that will be more inclusive for every resident. Also, I'll increase the visibility of the county commission around the entire county and the region. And I hope I can add value to the relationships between municipalities and the county commission. So look forward to it. If you ever have any question, any way I can just help or discuss anything else I stand on, feel free to call me. And thank you for the time.
Councilman.
Jerry, thank you for your patience. I know you've been here about 4 hours.
It's been good. It's been good.
Oh, did you come to the work session too?
Glutton for punishment.
Okay, anyone else?
Council, hi. Bobby Hall, your former employee running the golf course, PGA golf professional. I live at 859 Colonial Drive, Fairhope, Alabama. On leaving the city, I want to thank you all for allowing me to serve as your PGA golf professional. I applaud the new hire in Jeff. I think he, from what the mayor read, is a fine candidate, and anybody that's a member of the PGA of America, you need to support him because he's well-trained and he's well-versed. And I hope there's a few people that are patrons at Quail Creek will give him the support that he needs to continue it forward. One of the things I had to do as a PGA golf professional is keep my credentials up. Every year I'm to receive 36 hours of what's called MSR points with the PGA of America. I kept those every year. I served 25 years as a member of the PGA of America, 37 years as a golf professional. I'm glad to see that you're working on the clubhouse and that hopefully some things will come about to make it better, but it sure is embarrassing to be in that damn trailer out there. And I think it's unsightly, I think it's unprofessional, and I think you need to upgrade the facilities as soon as possible and give Quail Creek the attention it deserves. The cart paths are in very bad shape. I've seen them for many years. Richard has offered to put some plans together while I was here to make it better. That needs to be done. You're going to have an accident in a golf cart down number 12 with the erosion that's out there.
I kept my credentials with the PGA of America. I think you need to do the same thing with a superintendent. Jeff Williams is a great guy. He's a good Christian man. He has a son on the police force. I like Jeff a lot. But he doesn't have the credentials to keep Quail Creek going in the direction it needs to be in. You need to hire a golf course superintendent who's certified. Seven months ago, a petition was passed to the mayor about things at Quail Creek that need to be given attention. I tried to back that petition up by giving my advice of what I thought the golf course should be in and how it should be conducted and run. And that was pretty much swept under the carpet. It's never been addressed with the golfers out there that put the petition out there. I think you need to speak to the people if you're going to have the people and what they want and the citizens of Fairhope. I think you need to give them a voice. It's my recommendation that you take the golf course out from under the rec department and have an advisory committee that reports to the city council. That's the only way you're going to get things accomplished. Men's Golf Association, Ladies Golf Association, the Nick Center, the Wednesday Seniors, all the leagues that play out there, they need your support, and I hope you'll give it to them. In my leaving, and I hope you'll give Quail Creek the attention that it deserves. Quail Creek's a huge asset to the city of Fairhope. It raises a lot of money. I've said it time and time again. The patrons out there pretty much pay their way. It's one of the few facilities rec departments in the city that pays for itself. FIF, Kiwanis Club, Lions Club, many of the people in the city reap rewards from that golf course. And the funding that it does and the money that it raises for outside sources is one of your biggest assets. So I hope you'll keep Quail Creek in the limelight. Thank you for allowing me to talk tonight. I'm very passionate about Quail Creek. I did not want to leave Quail Creek, but I felt that this time it's not going in the direction that I felt it would or should. So I hope you'll give it the attention that it deserves. Thank you very much, and good luck to you in 2018.
Thanks for your service, Bobby. Okay, floor is still open.
Jill Cabanis, City of Fairhope, 161 North Section Street. You wouldn't need my personal address, Lisa? This is more of a clarification. I'm speaking on the budget, but a clarification issue. The 2% that you spoke about, the way it was written on the resolution, was that intended for all employees except the three different conditions that were spoke of?
Now, the conditions were they must have been here for a year.
For a year.
Full-time
They've
employees.
maxed out.
Full-time for,
Right.
if somebody has received a merit raise
Right.
or promotion,
Right.
they don't get that because, I mean, in every case that I saw, it far exceeded the 2%.
Right, or if
And-
they've maxed out.
And if you're maxed out, you don't either, because we would need the personnel board to expand the pay. If we start paying outside, we're violating our own personnel board recommendations and what we've adopted for job descriptions if we start going out of those brackets. And they will come in and expand those brackets from time to time.
But what I'm asking is, did you intend for every single employee, not included in those three scenarios, to get a 2%? Because that's not how the original budget was written.
Yes, we did. Is that correct? Now, I thought that when we asked you that question today, you said that that was taken care of. Then the way the original budget was written, who was getting 2%?
It was a lump sum. It was a 2% times the total amount of salaries. And so,
Merit raises.
right,
And the supervisors would base it on anniversary, so it doesn't all happen at once, but on their anniversary, they would evaluate based on performance.
It's not the way we understood it today, but that's what we adopted. We adopted that it's 2% for everyone. I don't know, Mayor, what you're saying on that, but I mean, we had this discussion just today, and you said that 2% was included for each department, and it was a
It wasn't
2%.
by employee, though. It was down at the bottom, and it was a lump sum of the total salary dollars. I'm just here for clarification, that's all.
Yeah.
I explained this during my presentation.
We had this discussion with Jill this very afternoon about that. I mean, that's,
I think she was clarifying, because it is a 2%, but it's basically given on the annual review, not all at once. And this is what I explained during my presentation. I wasn't at the meeting when y'all met. So it's definitely what supervisors want too, because they want to be able to reward the people that are doing exceptionally. We talked about this last year, y'all agreed and said that since they were expecting a 2%, you were going to do it this one time. And then I thought y'all agreed that the merit-based system is the way to go for the future.
not to contradict, I don't remember agreeing to that. I think that the merit-based system has some merit. I think in government, it's a little harder to implement. It's a tough one. Councilman Brown, you got a thought on that?
What do we do at this point?
Well, the problem is this. If we had another meeting between now and when those raises take effect, we could bring it back up at the next meeting,
It
and
could
we
be
can
at the
always
next
amend
meeting.
the budget.
could do it
What
at
I
the
don't
next
want
meeting.
you to have to do is put everybody in there, that 2% raise, and go through all that effort for February the 1st, which is what it says takes effect, and then change that, 2 weeks later and have to
Right.
put everything back in
And
the
that's why
system again.
that's why I came up.
The only way you could do it easily, which would be literally go back to that adoption of that budget and change the implementation date of that raise, and then give ourselves some time to discuss that. That's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
And it can be done. I mean, just 2% of your salary for 2 weeks out of the year, is all that, someone would be missing. We could also make it retroactive to whatever we decide. We could also go in, if it's after February 1st, and make it retroactive February the 1st. Council, any comments on that?
I don't really have any strong feelings one way or the other. I don't have a problem with the 2% raise across the board, but I also don't have any issue with letting supervisors decide merit raises either. I mean,
It's something that the council's always approved, like there are merit raises in this budget, and there are promotions, and there are a few, and that may explain why there were so few, actually. May explain why there were so few
That's
merit
right.
raises in there.
It was, because that was the whole proposal.
I would like to bring something up, just since we're talking about the budget, something that I noticed after we voted, but that I didn't see beforehand, and I hate to do this, but I think, at least something I disagree with, was, and I want to make sure we're clear about, there was in the budget to create, I think, an assistant electric superintendent. Did we keep that in there, or did we get rid of that?
We did not keep it in there.
That would be what I disagree with. My opinion would be that we would need an assistant electric superintendent.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what we can do about that now, but
It can be brought up next meeting. I mean, it's not.
Yeah,
it's hidden.
yeah, any position can be brought up at any time, too. I mean, that doesn't preclude it from ever being brought up in the future. Okay.
just something to think about then. Food for thought for next meeting.
You amend the date that it's implemented?
Yeah. Make it retroactive?
The merit raises are going to happen on the anniversary date, so that they're not all happening at once anyway. We're going to spread them out over anniversary dates. So there will be a percentage of them that happen if their annual, their annual was in the last couple
I
months.
literally thought that was, we were doing what you had wanted in there. I'm trying to find the new resolution. Lisa? I've got it shoved in my book somewhere. And that. So, Mr. McDowell, you're saying, we could make it retroactive, but we need to, we have to change the language completely in that paragraph, though, and then, because it's very descriptive.
Council President, state law does not allow retroactive pay.
Would it be something that we would have to then bump to March 1?
Well, I don't even think you can bump it. I think you have to just define what it's going to look like. First, you just have to take that, you have to take that paragraph out. And how do we make a motion to amend the resolution that we just adopted by removing that paragraph?
That's what you do, right? Is he talking about amending it now or doing it next?
Basically, we're going to
We
start.
have to amend it
That's going
now.
into effect February 1st.
You can,
Just remove all.
Just the whole paragraph.
Yeah, just remove
Just
the whole
remove the
paragraph.
paragraph and we'll redefine it if we have to, if we decide to. Or we can, to vote to amend it. Do you have a number for that resolution? Does it have to be in the?
There's no number yet.
Okay. I can see it. Okay, I'll tell you what, council, I will entertain a motion to amend the budget resolution that was adopted tonight, the third paragraph concerning the 2% employee raise adopted would be stricken from the resolution entirely, and everything else would remain as is. Entertain a motion to amend the resolution as
So
adopted.
moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to amend the resolution as adopted. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Now we need a motion to approve the amended resolution.
I make a motion to approve the amended resolution with that paragraph stricken.
Okay? A motion to approve the amended resolution.
Second.
Okay? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So we'll be back in 2 weeks to decide whether we want to do a 2% merit or 2% across the
Yeah, we'll
board.
decide whether to put this paragraph back in or do it an alternate way.
All right?
Okay? And we could make it effective that date, I'm sure.
Right.
Okay. So, anyway, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor to adopt the amended resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. That's a first, Jill. We've never voted on a resolution after the public participation like that. That's a good job.
Thanks, Jill.
You'll be in the news.
Okay, anyone else?
My name is Wilbur Houston. I live on the south side of Twin Beach Road. I'd like to know what's going on over there. I own property in that area.
Okay, so is Sherry Lee or Richard here to go over what we went over on the community action plan? Or is there something in particular?
Now, they're doing a lot of clearing over on the south side of Twin Beach Road on Henshaw, well, that'll be Section Street on the other side.
Are y'all familiar with that clearing?
Could be RSA.
I think
Henshaw,
it's a
Glover Road,
a county development. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it's RSA.
I think it's RSA. I think it's part of the Grand Hotel,
I think,
RSA,
yeah, it meets up.
their next development.
Right.
That's a
But that's-
county project? Do you know?
I'm not positive.
On the south side, huh?
Right about Twin Beach Church.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, the entrance in,
Huh?
where they cut the entrance off Twin Beach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, right across Wilson Lane.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just speculating this RSA. I heard in the planning and zoning that they're looking at starting their next, it's not a phase, because this is a new development. They're, what's it called, the
The cottages? or-
cottages or whatever it's called, that they're wrapping up the final phase of that, and then this is a new subdivision. I'm guessing, I don't know if that's what it is, but that's,
I'm guessing.
you have, this city council, I have no idea what, we hadn't voted
I
on
need
it.
to talk to somebody that know, not
But
guessing.
you can talk to Wayne Dice in planning. He's the planning director. I mean, he's not, I think he must have left. But you can talk to him tomorrow.
Talk to who, man?
Wayne Dias. He's he's the planning director.
They call it the city,
Karen.
D-Y-E-S-S, D-Y-E-S-S, Dias, Wayne, planning
If you call
director.
the planning department, you can ask for Wayne Dias.
Sorry, I couldn't help.
Anyone else?
Jack, I forgot one thing, we got to talk about sewer at the airport. We've got to put a recommendation to the airport in, I think, February the 12th, to the FAA to try and get our grant money for this year. And on the sewer, there's come an issue of a gravity system or force main system. We took the 3 bids that we received last year and did an average.
I'm looking at my calendar, I'm not reading emails while you talk.
Okay. And the average for a gravity feed system, and I'm quoting these off the top of my head, but I believe it's $571,000. The average for a force main, which would be grinder pumps at each of the hangars and the FBO on the east side, was in the $55,000, $58,000 range. It's about an 873% increase. The FAA will not fund any money for any sewer system if it's to be used outside of the airport. A gravity feed system could be used outside the airport, but the FAA will not give us any grant money if it is to assist in a neighborhood outside the airport property. They will pay 100% of a force main system, which would be easy to do. And would eliminate several problems. One, we would not have to have a lift station like we would on gravity feed. Excuse me. 2, the city would not have to eventually take over the maintenance of that lift station. And then 3, we could force each person that leased property out there to build a hangar to put in their own pump system and put in a grinder pump and pump to the force line that the FAA will reimburse us to install. So there's also some questions of, do we even qualify as a subdivision? We're not selling any land. We're only leasing property. And we believe that might take us out of the loop of a subdivision question anyway. If we are a subdivision, we're over the 500% rule, which would come back to the table and say, hey, here's an effective way to do this. The city engineers are concerned about individuals maintaining their grinder pumps. That's done in neighborhoods all over this county. And it could be put in the lease where folks are forced to maintain their own, understand they maintain their own, have to do an annual maintenance upgrade on their system to be sure it's working properly. If one of them chooses not to and it fails, it will only affect them and not their neighbors and their other hangars. And then we've got to get the city engineers to understand that we're not putting in 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. We're putting in a toilet and maybe a mop sink. And that's all that's going to go in these hangars. They're going to get flushed 2 or 3 times a month. If we go a gravity feed system, the only way the city gets reimbursed for the sewer, which they'll have to eventually maintain that lift station, is off the water usage. The water usage is going to be basically nothing. Be a losing proposition for the city of Fairhope to own a gravity feed system there. Volkert, the engineer, is put together some stuff and I think presented it to our city engineers. But we need to be sure everybody gets together the rest of this week and next week so we can have a recommendation from the city or the council, because the FAA, according to Volkert, wants something concrete, and Volkert has to put it in the plans, and they want to know that if they fund it, it's going to be approved. So that's just a meeting we need to make happen here before long. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close public participation, and I will read this letter. This is from City Attorney Marcus McDowell. The City Attorney, I, Marcus McDowell, hereby request the City Fairhope Council go into executive session based on Alabama Code to discuss pending litigation and possible settlement options regarding said pending litigation, and to discuss the consideration the city is willing to offer or accept when considering the purchase, sale, exchange, lease, or market value of real property. The discussion could have a detrimental effect upon the competitive position of the city in the negotiations if the matter was discussed in public. As city attorney, I hereby request the council of the city of Fairhope rise from regular city council meeting on Monday, January 22nd, 2018, to go into executive session. The city council shall be in executive session for approximately, let's say, 45 minutes. At the end of the executive session, the city council shall return to the city council chambers to resume the regular city council meeting. And citizens, I can tell you, when we do resume, we'll come back in here and we'll entertain a motion for adjournment. So you're welcome to stay to witness that, or you may choose to leave. So I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Second. Clerk, we roll call that? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay. Mr. Boone, you're out of order. Do you want to take your seat so we can vote?
I'm in the building. I can speak up just as loud as you want.
I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.